the difference of squares has to have 2 terms. The last method's the toughest one. It's any trinomial. And this is where you've got 3 terms. Again, it's trinomial, there's 3 terms. But the first term, the coefficient of the first term is not going to be 1. It's going to be something other than 1. And the multiplications and the factors and all those kinds of things gets a little trickier. Now, you may have been taught guess and check. You may have been taught grouping. You may have been taught a box method. I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do grouping within a box. I think it's more organized. If you use just regular grouping, that's fine too. If you just guess and check, that's fine too. In the end, I want you to get the right answer. I'm going to start off with a relatively challenging problem, and with the hopes that ones that you see that are like this that are actually a little bit easier will then be easier. But here's the type of example we're talking about. 3 terms. The leading coefficient is something other than 1. In this case, is 7. It's still in descending order. It goes x squared, x, no x. So it goes down. The x powers go down. And there's not a greatest common factor. I want to check for that. I don't have that. 7 doesn't go into 31 or 20. So here's the method I like to teach. We need to find some factors that are going to combine together to give me this minus 31. It's not as simple as the last one where you go, okay, find the factors of negative 20 that add up to negative 31. It doesn't work. It doesn't work because this first term has a coefficient of 7. So what I need to do is I actually need to multiply 20 and negative 20, excuse me, and 7 together. I'll start that all over again because that was a terrible sentence. I need to multiply 7 and negative 20 together. And what now I'm looking for are factors of negative 140 that add up to negative 31. So if you're thinking about that table before, I need them to multiply to be negative 140 and add to be negative 31. So this becomes a challenge. First of all, because they have to multiply together to be a negative, I know one term, one factor has to be positive, one has to be negative. And then it's a matter of trying to figure out what ones they are, what are the right factors. I'm going to start off relatively simple and go negative 14 and 10. Obviously, those add up to negative 4, so they don't work. Key thing here, since I need my 2 factors to add up to a negative, of the 2 factors that I use, the negative one needs to be bigger. Because if the negative one was smaller, then I would end up getting a positive number when I add them together. Alright, so negative 14 and 10 don't work. But now I'm going to use the factors that already exist inside these numbers to try to help me come up with new ones. So for example, 14 is 7 times 2, 10 is 2 times 5. So if I put those 2's together, let's say, the 2 from the 14 and the 2 from the 10, that would give me a 4. And I want that to be, it's obviously going to be smaller, so I want that to be positive. So I still have a 7 left over here and a 5 left over here. Holy cow, look at that. I found it on the second try. So, negative 35 and 4, when I add those together, are negative 31. Now, it's very possible that you wouldn't find it that quickly. I got lucky in the first try. But again, let me just kind of write out what I was thinking here. Since I've got 2 and 7 from 14 and 2 and 5 from 10, really what I did is I'm like, alright, let's just take 2 times 2, throw that over there as the 4, and that's where that 4 came from. And then, well, I was left with a 7 and a 5. Let's throw those together, and it turned out that negative 35 plus 4 is negative 31. So those are the right factors. Those are the ones I need. Okay. So now I have to show you kind of how to use them, because it's not as simple as what we did before. It's not x minus 35, x plus 4, because I have the 7x. Now, what we're really going to do is take this middle term and we're going to break it up. Maybe you learned guess and check from this point, and if you know how to do guess and check from that point, do it. Go for it. If you use grouping to break up this middle term and rewrite the problem this way, 7x squared, now I use my terms that I just used, minus 35x plus 4x minus 20, and you know how to group from there, go for it. I'm going to show you a different method that you probably haven't seen before, and I like to call it the box method because it means we draw a big box. And it has 4 boxes within the box. It still uses all of these terms. Okay, the first term always goes here. The last term always goes here. Now, these 2 terms go in the other 2 boxes, and it doesn't matter which one goes where. And positive 4x. Okay? If this is new to you, great. If you know grouping from here and you wanted to do it that way, that's great too. I'm going to go over to the next slide and finish up this problem. So, now here's what we do. You take the greatest common factor of each row in each column. So for this one right here, I'm going to focus just on this one right now. Okay? The greatest common factor between 7x squared and minus 35x is 7x. 7 goes into 7 and 35. X goes into both. Now on this bottom one, 4x and minus 20. 4 is the greatest common factor. Now I start looking at columns, 7x squared and 4x. The only thing that goes into both of those is x. And then the last one, when the first term, so when I'm looking at it sort of down, the first term is negative, which means I'm going to factor out a negative. The biggest number that goes into 35 and 20 is 5. And since that first term is negative, I'm going to make it minus 5. Okay, so here's where I come up with my actual answers now. Alright, so this is, my first one is 7x plus 4, and the second one is going to be x minus 5. That's the box method. It's the same thing as grouping, it's just organized a little bit differently. So if you used grouping with the 4 terms before, and as you know, you find the greatest common factor, and then you end up with a common binomial term, then you can go ahead and use that. I just wanted to show you something else. Again, if you like guess and check better, you can use that too. Those are the 4 basic ways of factoring. It's going to be important that you review that because we're going to be working on that for the next few days, and this is going to be on your test.